tonight. I'm just going to pull up the other screen over here. Oh, we have some on already. Hi, I am Aimee Raupp. I am the author of Yes, You Can Get Pregnant, this book. I am a women's health and wellness expert, an acupuncturist, Chinese herbalist, and I began these free webinars, which I am calling Fertility Sessions, about 7 months ago. And it's my way of giving all of you expert advice from women's health experts so that you can learn and grow as much as you need to on your path to conception and improving your fertility and becoming a mother. So I'm thrilled to be with you tonight. Tonight is a really important topic, I think, because I see it affect women quite a bit clinically, whether it was the chicken or the egg. You know, we're talking about fear around your fertility. So what came first, whether you started having fertility challenges and then started getting scared, or you are surrounded by people who've had fertility challenges and now you currently have fears around your fertility, or you're somewhere in the middle. It doesn't really matter, but the fear around your fertility can actually affect your fertility. And so I am joined tonight by Joelle Samples of yinroot.com, and she herself has gone through quite a challenge with fertility and really understands the fears. And so without further ado, and she also has, well, an announcement for those of you that don't know, but here's Joelle. I'll let you chime in.
Hi everyone. Thank you so much for having me, Amy. I'm really excited to be here and to share my story. Any time that I'm able to get my story out to others and just provide some sort of hope and inspiration, it's always really rewarding for me, and I know that it can be beneficial for other people as well. So if it's okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my story with everyone.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to back up all the way to when I was 16, and I was diagnosed with epilepsy at the age of 16. I just started having grand mal seizures out of the blue, and I had my first one on January 1st of 2000. So it's been 16 years since I had my first one. And I was young and I was living with my parents obviously then, and we were all new to what that meant and what that diagnosis was. And so I went through a period of, you know, being on and off medication and switching medication and still having seizures and not having seizures. And it was just a mess. And I really hated taking medication. And so I graduated from high school and I went away to college, and I wasn't so close to my parents anymore. And so I got a little bit worse about taking my medication, which I do not recommend, but that's my journey. And I would take it every once in a while. And but I kind of started to become more in tune with my body and when the seizures were happening. And so that kind of led me down this path of holistic health, because I realized that I could be off of my medication and not have seizures. And so it was no different, like, necessarily than being on the medication. Like, the medication wasn't necessarily helping. So that led me down this whole path of holistic health and becoming more in tune with my body, which was really important and exciting. And I went as long as 3 years without having a seizure.
Wow.
Not being on medication and just paying attention to my diet and lifestyle factors.
Amazing.
And so then I went to go get a massage one day, and the massage therapist introduced me to a functional medicine doctor, and I had no idea what that was at the time. This was several years ago, probably back in 2008. And I went to go see him, and he totally just changed my life. He was really amazing, and it just was a totally different kind of feel that I had when I was at his doctor's office, as opposed to other doctors I had seen in the past. So I was like, and I I need to do something in this field. Like, I like this. I'm passionate about this. And so I decided to go back to the Institute for Integrative Nutrition and get my health coaching certification. And I really had no idea what I was going to do with that certification at the time, but I just knew that that's where I needed to be. And so I got that certification, and while I was doing that, I was working full time. My husband Shane and I got married in May of 2012, and Shane's almost 10 years older than I am. So we were ready right away to just like not prevent and you know, start having kids if that's what our plan was. And so we started, and nothing happened. And so then we got a little bit more serious about it in January of 2013, and I started doing tons of research and tracking my temperatures and all of that. And so then realized that we were going through infertility challenges. And so started seeing some doctors, and then I came across Dr. Jennifer Mercier by searching infertility hashtags on Instagram or on Twitter, and she had a training to become a certified Mercier therapist, and it just really resonated with me. And so I went to Chicago and got trained by Dr. Mercier and started providing fertility coaching and Mercier therapy services in Indianapolis, here where I live. And
tell us what Mercier therapy is. Okay.
Yeah. So Mercier therapy is a form of like deep gynovisceral pelvic massage that allows the woman's body to like restore blood flow and circulation to the reproductive organs so that they can hopefully conceive more naturally or more effectively alongside assistive reproductive therapies. So it's great for breaking down scar tissue, dealing with endometriosis. Dr. Mercier herself had stage 4 endometriosis and was able to conceive naturally with her 2 children through the work of Mercier therapy herself, which is really amazing.
That is amazing.
Yeah. So I went through a slew of different therapies and modalities, and really my husband and I were very focused on taking a more holistic approach to our fertility. So it took us a long time to like get in with a fertility specialist, and we did decide this past October to go see a fertility specialist, and I was this close to canceling my appointment. But I decided that, you know, knowledge is power, and that's what I always tell my clients, and that being educated about something can only help me. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to go to this appointment, this consultation, and I'm going to see what he has to say, and I'm going to tell him what my boundaries are, and we're going to go from there. And so I went to the appointment, and it was really good. And my husband and I decided, because we had tried lots of holistic things and still were not successful. My husband had male factor, and so we were also dealing with that as well. And so we decided in December this past year that we would do a natural IUI, which some people are not familiar with. Mm-hmm. So a natural IUI is where the woman is not stimulated on medications, but rather we just go in during my ovulation time, and my husband's sample was cleaned and washed and then injected during the time of ovulation. And so it was a lot less expensive, and thankfully it was successful, which is so exciting and such a blessing. Yeah, so we went in New Year's Eve morning, December 31st of 2015, and our theme for our party on New Year's Eve was "The best is yet to come," and we found out January 12th, that we were expecting, so really excited.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna chime over. So how many years was it that you were actually trying to conceive?
3 years. So we started well, like 3.5 years. We started, my husband though, he says that we started before we were even married. And I was like, no, we did not. No, we didn't. And so we stopped preventing when we got married in May of 2012, but then didn't really start tracking and kind of paying more attention to our signs of ovulation and fertility health until January of 2013. And then we found out January of 2016 that we were expecting.
So then you have, a lot of experience, I think, on the personal side for sure with what the struggle is all about. I have less of that personal experience, I guess, and more of the clinical experience. And I got pregnant naturally at 40. I didn't necessarily try to conceive for many years. I just didn't meet my partner until I was 39. And so, but I was actively, probably for just as many years, preparing my palace, as we call it in Chinese medicine, and really working on optimizing my health and my fertility so that I could get pregnant when I wanted to, because I knew I would want to have children. So my fears were different, I suppose, around the fertility. One of my biggest fears was, since I authored this book and I've been coaching women for a decade on how to optimize their health and fertility, was, do I really know what I'm talking about, right? Mine was more, I hope what I'm saying is going to work for me,
Yeah.
Really lucky, and grateful, and all of that, it's worked for hundreds of women, thousands of women at this point that I've worked with. But, so my fears were a little different, but you were in it. So get into those fears, break it down for us a little bit. I'm sure the viewers can relate, but I think it's always nice to know that you're not alone in this process, and what you were feeling, others have gone through, and now you're actually pregnant. Like, you're the success story, and I'm going to chime in before you speak. One more thing. My other thing too is, like, a natural IUI. Like, I always usually joke of, probably with the male factor, the washing of the sperm really is what made the difference, I'm assuming. Perhaps the endometriosis that you have endometriosis, or you don't?
I do not have. Okay. Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
So yeah, the male factor, the washing of the sperm, could have made all the difference. But also, when people get pregnant on a natural IUI, my assumption is, like, that was about to happen at home, like maybe it happened a couple months earlier than, anticipated. So it's all amazing no matter what, but sure, that's basically a natural conception. So it's, that's also really encouraging and inspiring for all the women, out here, especially the ones who are in this, and you see it too, I know clinically, some people are in this, years, right? And you're one of them. So bravo. I'm so happy that you're pregnant. I'm so excited for you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, I really am. It's, it's amazing. But so break down the fears and just go.
Yeah. So definitely a lot of stress and a lot of fear around not becoming a mom, and the challenges with becoming a mom. I always thought that growing up, one of my cousins actually had trouble getting pregnant, and I can always remember thinking, like, gosh, like, why would they not just adopt? Like, I was young. I'm 20 years younger than my oldest cousin, and so but then going through it, it's so different. People have no idea, just the stress. People who don't go through it have no idea what stress is caused by the infertility or fertility challenges. And thankfully I felt like I was able to minimize that some, and we'll talk some about some strategies in order to kind of break through the fears around fertility in a little bit. But I can remember a specific month of the 3 years, and it was a really terrible month for me. I just would cry at everything. I can remember driving with my husband over to my in-laws' house to have dinner, and I just busted into tears, and I didn't know why. Like, I couldn't put my finger on it, but it was so real. And I just told him, like, I can't go. Like, I can't go. I'm so stressed out. And I was like, I'm going to drop you off and just go drive around. And he was like, no, you're not going to just drop me off and go drive around. Like, either we're going to go home or you're going to go here with me. And so, that was a really, really hard time for me. But there was a couple of things that I did during that time that allowed for me to kind of break through that fear and really focus on the present moment as opposed to what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
And so that was beneficial for me.
Yeah. That's one of the things I talk about a lot in the clinic and a lot in my book for sure, and in my coaching of finding ways to be happy now, right? Finding things that you can be grateful for in the here and now, which is always, and I say this from a place of love, always easier said than done, especially when you're in it, and especially when you're having a dark month. Like, I'm sure you had that one you remember, but I'm sure there were more, and, and every time you got your period and, all of those, the heaviness that comes with it, but to start to focus on the here and now, and even, starting like a gratitude journal, right? Or just things that you can do to find things in your life that you appreciate, from having a good night's sleep to even, webinars like this of just like, okay, there's hope, there's inspiration, and one of the things I talk about in the book too is, changing the language, not using the I word so much, the infertility, rather saying like fertility challenges, but then also focusing on all the fertility around you, or even, like Joelle's story, like 3 years of trying to conceive, and she did it, and basically naturally, and so that's an amazing story to focus on, that it can happen, it does happen, and sometimes it can take 3 years, which seems like a freaking eternity, but that it can shift, and and one of the things, and you probably do the same, and I'll let you chime back in a second, but one of the big things I do with my clients is to try to shift the focus away from fertility and to health, right? So you went to IIN, and the spiel, like, and the Chinese medicine, I'm the same way. Your body, your fertility is not separate from your health at all. They are one and the same. And
absolutely.
So my thing is always to try to find what I call the kinks in the system, so whether it's digestion or sleep or, high stress or, anything that's maybe not optimal with your health, and just shift your focus to that and start making these lifestyle, changes, which, I don't think we'll get much into diet or nutrition or anything like that tonight, but we'll talk about some of the lifestyle modifications you can make to, break through the fear, but then to start to see how that's affecting the rest of your life. Like maybe, if you are more mindful of how you're feeling or finding more gratitude in your day-to-day life, you might see that you're sleeping better. And then when you start to see that your health is shifting, you can know for sure that your fertility is improving as an extension of that. Like it's hands down, it's science, they're not separate. The Western medical model is amazing and brilliant, and obviously played a role in your pregnancy too, Joelle, but that they tend to compartmentalize and say fertility is from the belly button down, and that's it, and it's really not. And so I think a lot of it is our focus and our perception of things and how to shift that.
Yeah, I cannot agree more with that. I talk with my clients as well, a lot about just our general health and wellness and how that plays such a huge role in our fertility health. And like you said, it's not separate from other things that are going on in our body. And so we really have to look at ourselves as a whole. And there was something that you said that made me think of just the fact that, like, a lot of times we're diagnosed with something and that, or we have an illness of some sort, and we have to realize that illness took many years to come to fruition. And so we can't expect for there to be a magic pill or for there to be a magic procedure that's just going to take it away. And so it's really taking one step at a time back in the right direction, to get our health in the best possible, in our body in the best possible position in order to carry that baby in our palace, like you said, which I really love. And so sometimes that takes baby steps. And I really do feel like, maybe our journey could have been shortened a little bit if we went straight to assisted reproductive therapies. But I don't know that I would feel as good. I don't know that my baby would be as healthy. And that wasn't really important to us. And so we took a lot of small steps and took them very gradually. And I do feel like that is another reason why the natural IUI was so successful, because I felt like my body was
very ready. Yeah.
Yeah, it was ready, and it was, I was optimally fertile. And
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So then how do you think, when you were in the throes of the fertility challenges and you were having those stressful months, how do you think, and even with your clients, what you see, how do you think the fear around fertility actually affects the fertility? What do you see?
Yeah. So, God love our family and friends who have not gone through this, because they are there to support us and love us, and they only want the best for us. But it's really hard because they have no idea how hard it really is. And so I know that, like many of the viewers, or myself, like many of the viewers, have heard things like, just relax and you'll get pregnant, or maybe you should start the adoption process, and that'll take the stress away. And I swear, if someone said that to me one more time, I was gonna go crazy. But in some sense, they're so right about that, because we are so incredibly stressed out about this one aspect of our life, and it's taking control, and it's taking over so much of our health, so much of our life, so much of our happiness. And so that can lead to all sorts of different things. My seizures specifically are due to stress and sleep deprivation. And those two things go hand in hand together. When I'm really stressed out, then I'm not sleeping as good. And when I'm not sleeping as good, then I'm more stressed out. During the day, I can't, it's just kind of a rat wheel, and that's the same thing. And so I liked that you said earlier about which comes first, the chicken or the egg, and that's so true. Is it the stress that's causing the fertility, or the fertility that's causing the stress, or possibly both? And it doesn't really matter. The fact is that there's stress and there's fear around that, and so we need to look at what can we do to minimize that in our life.
Yeah.
But definitely, the stress is going to lead to fatigue. It will lead to, a rise in our stress hormone, our cortisol levels, which is going to affect overall hormones, and, can affect our blood pressure. And also changes in our diet and lifestyle, what we choose to do on a day-to-day basis, because we're so stressed out, we don't have the energy to maybe go work out, or go for a long walk, or even take our dogs for a walk, because we're emotionally drained. So it can cause lots of different challenges.
Yeah, one of the things I always talk about too, especially in my coaching, and in my more recent writing too, I think, as I've evolved, even from writing Yes, You Can Get Pregnant, but just that our beliefs about our health, or say specifically our fertility, truly affect our behaviors, right? So what we believe, if we believe that that we are not fertile, right, or that we're never going to get pregnant, then the choices you make support that, in a sense, right? Versus, I always say to women when, they come see me, and I always ask them, do you believe that you are going to have this child? Do you believe you're going to get pregnant? And I'd say 99.7% of them all say yes, and I always say, well, I'm sure of it too, because you came here, you made this appointment, you showed up, you're asking for guidance and for advice, you're asking me on what more you can do. So you believe on some level that you need to shift behaviors to support, this decision to become a mother. But when the fear is in there, and we see it, and we've all experienced it, whether it's around trying to get pregnant or really, any other thing that we really, really strongly desire, it starts to inhibit us a bit, and we say too in Chinese medicine, there's an interesting analogy that we say the heart and the uterus need to be connected. There's actually this channel that runs between the heart and the uterus, and they need to communicate with one another in order for the uterus, or the child's palace, that's what we call it in Chinese medicine. So in order for the child's palace to truly thrive and be supremely fertile, the heart needs to communicate. But when there's a lot of fear or trauma or stress, the way I visualize it is there's actually like a severing of that channel, and so nothing gets through, or it gets through and it's like all tangled, and and so then the uterus is kind of left without this communication from the heart, which, as you probably would assume, the heart, we see in Chinese medicine, communicates joy and love, and so when there's that joy and that love and the gratitude, then that actually facilitates fertility. And that's nothing that's talked about in the Western model. We obviously see there's research that stress affects our hormones, that affects our fertility. That's very basic research. It's everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But no one who's going through fertility challenges wants to hear that, you just need to be less stressed. Like, you're not alone in the sense that, like, you want to just strangle them,
Yeah.
And rightly so. I mean, if they haven't gone through it, it's really hard to say. And, even myself, I definitely don't say that. I try to encourage ways to shift around it, because you really do see, and you probably see it with your clients, and I see it all the time, when there is this shift all of a sudden that is like, life is pretty good right now, and I do know what's going to happen. And so the surrender that takes place, it really seems there's a softening that starts to happen with, our clients. And then it seems to happen, and then there are women who are like, I want to get to that softening right now. How do I do it? And
Yeah.
that's the part that's challenging, where, patience, I think, plays a big role, right? And you must have had a ton of patience, sweetie.
Yeah, patience for sure. Definitely a lot of patience. And gosh, I cannot speak to enough the, what you said about our beliefs and how that affects our fertility. That is absolutely so true. And I would say, of the majority of my journey, I was able to stay really positive. Like, I know that this is going to happen. My body was created to do this, and so was my husband's. And we will make this happen. We will make this happen. And when people would ask me about it, I would just, it would be emotional, and I would cry, and it was challenging. But in my deepest heart of hearts, like the deepest pocket of my heart, I knew that I would be a mom someday. And I knew that it was just a matter of patience and taking time to get there. And so I think that belief, and for me, knowing that God had a plan for my life, that was enough to keep me going and keep me saying, like, okay, like, I'm going to make it through tomorrow, and tomorrow is going to be a great day because I just woke up and I'm breathing. And I could not be breathing. You know what I mean? Like, I could not be here. And so I'm going to make the most of this day today. So yeah, that belief system is, I truly believe that is very powerful.
Yeah, it truly is. And then, so what's some of the, what are some of the steps that you talk about with your clients, or even some things that you did to help you really start to break through? Because this is actually a personal question first too. Do you feel like, so over the last 3 years, I'm assuming with all the work you've been doing on yourself and with others, that it started to help you feel, I suppose, less alone in your process, right? That there were other people going through it.
Mm-hmm.
And then did you feel like you started to soften and surrender? Like, was it like a slow process, or was it like a switch that went off?
Yeah, so that's really interesting because I talk a lot about this month that I have that was like a really deep, dark month for me. And certainly there was other moments of, you know, feeling really challenged by the situation, but I had like 1 month of just very deep depression that I could not get out of. And during that month, I signed up for a class. I signed my husband and I up for a class here in Indianapolis with a school called Trade School Indianapolis. And it's a barter for knowledge school, which is a really cool concept. You should look and see if you have anything similar to it and your viewers are from. But so what it is you sign up for a class, and they have classes on everything. Sewing 101, like website design, you know, how to make beer, whatever. They have all these different, you know, classes. And so I found one that another health coach was putting on who went to IIN, and it was talking about mindful eating. And yeah, so that was during that really challenging month. My husband and I went to that class, and it just totally hit me like, oh my gosh, like I need to be mindful even about the food I'm eating and like be thankful for it, and where did it come from, and you know, how was the food raised that I'm eating? And so going to that class was like, okay, like I got over a hump. And then that same week, I had signed up for a fertility visualization with Molly Nichols from the Mind Belly Connection. And I did that fertility visualization. It was very emotional for me. Like I was definitely like deep into it, and I can vividly like remember holding a baby in that. And after those two things that 1 week, I mean, I just like completely snapped out of my depression, and I was like, I've got this, you know, like it was totally like a light switch off and then on. And from that point forward, I never had another month like that. I really maintained focus on being mindful of my everyday.
And how long ago was that month?
Oh gosh, that was cool. That was like towards the beginning.
Okay.
I would say it was probably at least like 2 years ago, you know, so like maybe a year into it.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe a year into the fertility challenges. Yeah, something like that.
And then, because I always talk too about, you know, and this is part of the reason why I do these webinars, or a huge part of the reason, I should say, not a small part, is that there's research that shows that women who are in support groups or a supportive environment, you know, basically this sense of not being alone in this journey, that they seem to get pregnant twice as fast as other women. And so you were already doing this work and coaching women, right? And doing the Mercier therapy. So you were around women all the time that were also going through it, right?
Actually at that point I was not. I had not. Yeah. So this was pre Mercier therapy, and you know, pre the idea that, oh my gosh, like I'm going through this and I need to work with other women who are going through it, because I will tell you that like I cry with my clients, and you know, like we're wiping our snot together at the same time, because I totally get it.
And how did your clients respond when you found out you were pregnant?
Really good. They responded really well. They were all very excited for me. You know, it was a hard thing. It was a hard thing to tell them, because
so hard.
I know how it is to find out that news from someone else. Yeah. So that was all pre, you know, being certified in the Mercier therapy. But once I went and got certified in Mercier therapy and got trained by Dr. Jennifer Mercier, I came back from that weekend just like on fire, and knowing like this is why I was walking this path, is to serve these other women.
Wonderful.
Yeah, as challenging as it had been, and as hard as it was, and as badly as I wanted a kid, you know, I just knew, like, this is what I was placed here for, was to walk this journey with other women. And so I came back in, I guess it was October of 2014, I think. I think that's when it was. Yeah, October of 2014. Came back, rebranded Yin Root, rebranded my business to specifically work with women's health and fertility. And I started a support group called Hush, Breaking the Silence of Infertility.
Saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I started that support group, and we get together sometimes here locally in Indy, and then I have a gal in L.A. and a gal in Denver who are also trying to start Hush support groups there as well.
Amazing.
And then we have an online, just like private Facebook group also. And so I started that group, and started working just with a couple of friends who were struggling with infertility, and then it really just kind of snowballed from there. And so I kept running with it, and
then eventually
working on myself as well.
Exactly. Well, that's it. That's what I think is amazing, you know, and I think that of myself too, even though I didn't necessarily go through fertility challenges, because I mean, we don't really know, maybe I would have at some point, but I was more waiting for the partner rather than the trying to get pregnant part. But someone said to me when I fell pregnant at 40, and it was 2 years, it was really 3 years after I wrote this book. I think I handed this book in when I was 38. That my purpose, on this planet or whatever in this life was to follow this exact path, to actually get pregnant at 40, to show everyone that, this can happen. This is possible, that you can actually, optimize your fertility even as you age, so that, but there's so many components to it too. And I wonder, and I think about that with all the viewers of, rather than, I like the name of the support group, the Hush, because it's like, rather than being so hush about what you're going through, maybe in certain communities, and we'll skip around a little bit in our 1, 2, 3, 4 steps, but to find the right support that you need on your path, and how much that can actually transform your ability to conceive, right? Not even like from the scientific perspective, sure, that there's this interesting, they were small-ish studies, but that they found, there's a woman up, you probably know who she is, up at Harvard. Oh my gosh, why am I blanking on her name? This is crazy. Give me 1 second. I'll think of her name. But Alice Domar, and
yes.
she's written a couple books, and she basically just has support groups. So they don't do anything else other than they just meet once a week and they talk about their fertility challenges. But her studies have shown that women in support groups are getting pregnant twice as fast as women who are not. And then there's also some interesting research that women who are depressed are less likely to conceive than women who are more happy. And so, from that alone, we want to figure out how to get through some of these fears. But I also think that really chimes us in to the fact that we should surround ourselves with people who will support us the best they can on this path. And, even if they don't necessarily haven't gone through it, but that they at least have compassion. But also, that you're figuring out a way to serve others, right? That's a really interesting thing. That's what, we're both doing, and that, some of our viewers to think about that too, to maybe that would help you step out of your own way in a sense, that focus on helping some other people. And, I have a lot of women, unfortunately, who have had miscarriages. And so even if they haven't yet gone on to conceive a healthy child, I always encourage them to talk with others about miscarriage. And I'll often actually, same thing as you, sometimes I'm not totally doctor-patient relationship confidentiality. I cry with them, I hug and scream, we do all of the above. I will ask permission if one just had a miscarriage or is in a better place about a miscarriage. If another one just had one, I'll say, can I introduce you guys? And can you guys talk? And similarly, now I have a secret Facebook group as well that I, will invite people to join in, and that's another place where they can find support too, which, and if any of you ever want to join into that support group, or even Joelle's, just obviously email us. You have my email, and you can, but tomorrow when I send out the follow-up email, you can get both of us and respond to that if you want to join in. Perhaps we can include that maybe in the email. You share how they can sign up for yours, and I'll
Sure.
Little.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. Like, it's just kind of coming to me right now too, that this level of, I think, supporting one another, but also finding ways to help others while they're on this path with you, or maybe ahead of you or behind you, or even just becoming more of an advocate for women, taking better control of their preconception health, so when they are ready to conceive, they can, right?
Yeah. And as you were saying that, something that I was thinking about was definitely that was becoming a Mercier therapist and really focusing on women's health and fertility care was very therapeutic for me. I think that is oftentimes what allowed me to get through it more emotionally stable than I may have, without that. But also, again, in talking about the support, because my husband and I also, because my husband had male factor, and that seemed to be our biggest hurdle. When I announced my pregnancy, I talked about how overcoming fertility takes two. And really it takes a tribe, but in the sense of you and your partner, it really takes two. And I always was really, sensitive to the fact that my husband had male factor, and I didn't want him to feel like it was all his fault. And, so as someone else going through infertility, if your husband is the one that has male factor and that is the challenge, then, still making sure that you're working on yourself to get yourself in optimal health. And so not only did my husband have to go through, he had to do a couple of surgeries, and, I'd bring him his vitamins to bed every night. But I was doing things as well, because I knew that it was us that was not working together. It wasn't just him, and it wasn't just me. It was something that was not working. And so supporting one another in that, and encouraging each other through the journey, because it's very tough on them as well. And
it's so tough.
Yeah, it's interesting to have a conversation with my husband about it now that we're outside of that. Because he has told me a lot more about his feelings. And so, it is, I just recognize how challenging that was for him, and how important it is to support them as well.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I always, even if there isn't a male factor, but just our partners in general, how they do suffer, and and especially men, because they feel like this is, I just did a call the other night with a man who has male factor, and he said to me, it was something like, I'm very successful, I'm very confident, I look in the mirror, I like what I see, but yet I can't knock up my hot wife. That's what he said to me. And he was like, his heart is hurting over that. And, and she's already a client of mine, right? It's interesting. It's a similar situation where, everything seemingly is fine with her, fine, and I mean that lovingly, but, all her tests come back clear, but they have this male factor issue. And so they assume that that's part of the problem, but it's still, for me, it's really important to work on the couple as a whole, right? And he's already been doing all the diet and lifestyle and all of those things. She was like, oh, I wasn't really doing it because there's anything wrong with me, and I was like, you guys have to do this as a team, and you have to support him, and you take those vitamins and he takes those vitamins. Because I said the same thing, and I totally agree with you that it's not one person or the other. There's something happening with the commingling of your two, beings. And that's so we need to just kind of make that even, just make that more of an agreement, that they meet and they mesh and they make a child, and it comes back to the same things too around sex, around like, honey, I'm ovulating sex versus, just having regular sex. And I think that's really important too. And in part of the whole, getting over the fear factor too, where just get in the habit of having regular sex every week versus, just when you're ovulating sex, or even if you're going through fertility treatments, that we're still making sure we're intimately connecting on a regular basis, because we start to lose all that. And then, if you're only having ovulation sex, then every time you're having sex, both of you are thinking about whether or not this is the time it's going to work, rather than, enjoying and connecting on that intimate level. So there's so much to be said, right? The number one place probably to find the support is with your partner first, and then, elsewhere as well. And then even, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, gosh, I can totally relate to those.
Honey, I'm ovulating.
Honey, I'm ovulating sex times. Like, it's time, we have to do it tonight, and I have a headache, and he's exhausted from work, and we're just like, oh, screw it, we don't want to do it, So we actually came up with a system that worked really well for us, and I got these little glass hearts. They're like probably the size of a dime, and they are the colors of the chakras. If chakras is something that, viewers are not familiar with, you could definitely look it up. But they're the colors of the chakras, and they're hearts. And so during the time that I would be ovulating, or leading up to that time when I knew that I was going to be ovulating, I would set it out like on our bathroom counter, so that it would just give him a gentle reminder, like, it's coming, it's almost time. So it wasn't me saying like, babe, we got to do this now, like, and then getting stressed out if we didn't do it, and frustrated that he wasn't wanting to do it. You know what I mean? It was a more subtle way of me saying like, hey, it's about time. And, it was hard for him because, like you were saying with the guy that you were on the phone with recently, he feels like, okay, I'm pressured to have sex during this certain time, and then we're having sex and I can't get my wife pregnant, so now I don't want to have sex because it's not, it's just like, it's such a rat wheel. And so he and I both, can totally relate to that. And actually, at the end of last year, at the end of the year in October, I think, I finally decided to stop temping and charting my cycles, because it was, although that's something that I really encourage my clients to do, and I think that it's very important to be able to kind of understand and know what's going on with your body. At some point after 2.5 years of doing it, it was more stress than what it needed to be. And so we were like, let's just like have fun again and stop doing this, and so we did, and that worked out.
Yeah,
that was good for us. So
that's one of my recommendations. Back when I first started practicing, I was very into the basal body temperature charting, and then even more recently with the ovulation predictor kits. They weren't around when I first started working. Those are a newer addition to the tracking mania. And so I have women that, sometimes I'll say to them, let's not track this month. Let's just try to shoot for having sex like 3 times a week, every week. Or when I first meet someone and say they've been at it for a year, right? And they're tracking, and they're, every day they wake up and they have to think about it. Every day they wake up, they take their temp, and then they think about the fact that they're not pregnant, right? And it's like this. And so I'll give them permission. I'll say, let's just take a couple months off. Like, especially if you're seeing obvious signs of ovulation, like you're seeing the mucus, you're seeing the discharge, you feel a little dull, achy cramp, just have sex, I've transformed probably even since writing Yes, You Can Get Pregnant, that, I've started to shift my focus some of like, I just want you to have regular sex. That's what I want to do. And that was an interesting research article that came out that, couples who had more regular sex actually were more fertile. They think because something with the immune system. But I think from a Chinese medicine perspective was because there was like more joy, right? There was more intimacy and more connection.
Absolutely.
And probably less pressure. You know, it's that pressure sucks. It sucks for women too. And like, even think about that. The fear or the stress from that is it causes a lot of tension in our body. And, you know, the fallopian tubes are as thin as one of those, you know, tiny straws that you would sip a cocktail out of at a bar, you know. And so if there's a little tension in that, like that tube is not going to be open to receive that sperm or to carry that, you know, fertilized egg back up to the uterus. So to really be conscious of what that fear and that stress does to your physical body. You know, I always encourage, you know, to reconnect to you. Like, how do you feel when you think that thought? You know, how do you feel when you think about, oh, I have to have sex tonight because I'm ovulating? Do you feel excited, or do you feel like, great, you know, another month to be reminded that, you know, X isn't going to happen? Or, you know, and to start to tune into that, and how can we work on shifting that perspective? And it works differently for every single woman, but and man, you know, but to try to figure out what is going to work for you, and then what is going to work for you as a couple. You know, I love that. That's like a subtle reminder that you did with the little hearts. You know, I think that. And a lot of times too, I tell women to stop telling their husbands. You know, I'm like, don't tell them anything. And actually, and I give them homework that they need to like seduce their husband one time in the month, outside of ovulation, outside of when they can't get pregnant. You need to wear something sexy and seduce him the way you once did. You know, hopefully you did once, and you can do it again, and you will get it back, you know. But to get them in a rhythm of actually having sex for fun, for a desire versus, you know, a pregnancy, you know.
Right. Yeah.
So let's get into, well, go ahead. Did you have something to say? And then
No. Yeah, I'm ready to get into some other tips and stuff.
Yeah, let's get into more. So what are some specific tips you give your, or even that you worked for you to help get away from that fear?
Yeah. The mindfulness was obviously a huge key in my success, I feel like. And also really slowing down and learning to say no to things, and creating more space for joy and happiness in my life. So I was noticing that I, like many other women, I feel like, are people pleasers. And so it's easy for me to say yes to doing something, and then I have to scramble and rearrange my schedule in order to make that one person happy. And then I'm stressed out in the meantime because I still need to make all of these other people over here happy that I've committed to as well. And so really being able to kind of set some boundaries for myself and say no to certain things, slow down, that really helped me, along with being mindful. And those are definitely the big things. And then, of course, meditation and affirmations. You know, I prayed a lot as well. If that may be some, you know, maybe a part of your life, or maybe may not be, but you know, just allowing myself to believe that it was going to happen, like we talked about earlier. And so those affirmations really helped with that as well. Breathing exercises. I really love some of Dr. Weil's breathing exercises. And maybe we can send them some information about that as well, because they're really simple breathing exercises that really can help to just de-stress you in the moment, if you're having challenges with something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I second all of those, of course. And I think some of the best ways are, you know, like the gratitude journal, to start shifting your focus towards things that you appreciate or are grateful for in your life. And even something nice too, to do it with your partner. So each day you text your partner something you're grateful for, and then they text back. And that's just like a one communication a day, but to get in that habit. I think prayer, or, you know, whatever you believe in, but I think this level of trust, you know, if, and in the mindfulness or the meditation, to take time and really like check in with you, ask yourself, do I really believe this is going to happen? And for all of you who are on, I know you must believe, because you're here, you're finding, like I said, to anybody who shows up to any of our work, we know that they're on this path, and, we're meant to cross paths, and we're meant to give you something that you're going to take away tonight to help you on this path, because you're on your way to achieving what you want. So if you do believe, and even if it's really your 1 foot in belief, you're scared to say, yes, I believe, but you believe, then there has to be a level of trust that the timing is going to, be just perfect, and it will make sense. Just like what you said, Joelle, like it hit you all of a sudden, clear as day. Like, this is why I'm here. I'm here to support other people. Like, this is my path. It's like, it is that moment sometimes where it hits you over the head. And for some of you guys, it might not come for another 10 years after you raised the kids, but then maybe you started talking to other women in your community who are going through challenges, or had challenges, and found special friends that way because you bonded, and then you realize, like, that was why, or whatever it might be, but to to really trust in the process, and that, of course, is so easy to say. I even think back to when I was like dating or looking for my husband, right? And people would be like, "Oh, just trust," or like, "Oh, did you go to that online site?" And you were like, "Oh, effing kill you right now." But still, like, there was this level where I would have to quiet my mind enough to be like, do I know it's going to happen, or do I not know? And so it's similar. A baby's a little more serious, I think, than the spouse part, but that similar desire, to get to that place of trusting and knowing, and then also asking for support, whether that's from your partner, which I hope your partner is supportive in all of this, but if not, then perhaps that's part of this journey. I think we're on the same page, Joelle, that, I always joke, lighthearted joke, that part of the mission for me really is to get you and your husband into is my volume going funny on this?
A little bit, but I think you're okay.
Okay. To get you guys in a better place so that you're more connected, so that you can raise a healthy child, right? So maybe that's part of the path to get your relationship even stronger than it was, because you hear that so often, right? What the fertility journey has done for couples, and it often, and I'm sure you went through it with your husband, it strengthens you in ways that you didn't even know were possible, or that needed to be strengthened, right?
Right. Yeah, so, absolutely.
To just try to reflect and see where you are now, and continue to find joy in that space now. And I love the visualization too. You had said you did a visualization workshop. I think that's wonderful. I recommend that. See yourself really pregnant, see yourself holding that baby, let yourself go there, even if it makes you cry and it's very emotional and scary as hell, but if you can allow yourself the time to sit and do that, I would recommend it on as much of a regular basis as you could do that, to get to that. Like, I think there's a lot of power in getting to that feeling place of being a mother or being pregnant, right? There's a little muscle memory involved there, and that the power of belief is strong. So
yeah, absolutely. And the affirmations, I mean, even listening to those when you go to sleep, because even though we might be sleeping or on our way to sleeping, our mind and our body hear those things. And so putting in your headphones at night and listening to some fertility affirmations, you can find them free all over the place on the internet.
Yeah.
On the internet. And so, taking advantage of that and retraining your mind to know that yes, you can get pregnant, like it will happen. Yeah. You have to believe that if you want that to come to fruition, for sure.
Yeah. Agreed 100%. Yeah. So I'm going through some of the questions, and basically we've answered most all of them.
Okay.
One was kind of specific, which we didn't touch upon, which was just helping with IVF fears and retrieval and transfer and all of that. And I think what we've talked about pertains exactly to that, One thing though I do always say is I want you to hand it over to your doctors and trust that you're in the, in the right hands, if you will, that these guys are the experts, and in that moment they're going in and going to handle potentially one of your future, children. So I want you to send them lots of love and to trust that they are experts at what they're doing, and surrender a bit to that process. And I think that's important. And then also to maintain some level of, even if it's just intimate conversations, but intimacy with your spouse through the IVF process, because even though you're not necessarily physically together creating this person, your energy is, and you are, it is his first egg, and you really are physically creating this. So to still honor that and pay tribute to that, if you will, to see that as a part of, okay, so this is just an extra step in our process, and that's okay,
Right. Yeah. And I would say, if you don't feel good about, if you don't have those feelings towards your doctor or the person you're seeing, like, there are plenty of other reproductive endocrinologists out there that can help you, and you need to find the one that is certainly right for you. When my husband and I went in for a natural IUI on New Year's Eve this past year, it was really interesting. I can really understand how women can get into the loop of going through the procedures, because it is a unbelievably emotional process. And we only had to do it one time, and so that little extra bit of hope is like a Mount Everest. I mean, it is huge. And I can remember my husband gave us sperm, and we left, and they did what they had to do to it, and then we came back, and they were getting ready to put the catheter in and inject it into my uterus. And so they gave him his vial of semen or sperm when we got into the room. And he pulled out his phone, and we took a picture together with the vial and us. And so, like, it was amazing in that moment to see how, like, even excited he was, and and so it was a very emotional process for us, and I'm sure that it is for everyone else, but definitely honoring that. And like you said, even though it's not necessarily at home and in bed and the way that some people do it, like, it's still you two together, and it's just another step in the process. The other thing is that there are tons of different fertility affirmations specific to IVF or egg retrieval. Circle and Bloom is a really great.
She's my next month.
Oh, she is? Good.
Yeah,
Circle and Bloom is great. And I'm actually doing a Hypno Babies class right now for medical hypnosis for childbirth, but they also have a fertility program as well, and some like specific to IVF. So certainly check those out as well. I would recommend that.
I didn't know is that new that they started one for fertility, the Hypno Babies?
Yeah, I don't know exactly when they started that, but I do think that it's fairly new. Yeah.
That's a great resource. Maybe I'll fish that up, and I can fish that up and send that to you guys tomorrow too. Let me make a note to myself. Okay. I can do it after. So, okay, I think we have covered all the things we promised to talk about, and let me check. I don't think there's any additional questions that have popped up. But of course, like I said, tomorrow I'll be sending a follow-up email, and you'll have my information there and Joelle's information. And any personal questions, of course, you can email me, and if it's for Joelle, I'll forward it along. But you can also reach out to both of us after you receive the email tomorrow, and anything that we can help you with. That's what we're here to do.
Yeah.
And, I'm so glad you guys tuned in, and I hope it was as insightful for you as it was for me, for sure, and I'm sure Joelle. And it's just a pleasure to share. And my biggest message to you is to just not give up faith in your body, in this process, and in your ability to get and stay pregnant. I believe you can do it. I've seen so many women transform their health, and the emotional component to health is a really, really important one. So to not undermine it or give it that much space in your life, to really get in touch with those fears and know that you are worthy of working through them, and that you have so many things in your life right now to be grateful for and appreciate, and just trust that you're going to get where you want to get. I know that. And
Yeah.
I'll let Joelle say her goodbyes.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I always love sharing my story, and certainly if anyone has questions or you want to email me, you can definitely do that. I love to talk and dive deep with other people. So feel free to reach out, and you can find me at yinroot.com, YINROOT.com.
Perfect. All right. Okay, ladies, signing off. So everyone have a wonderful night, and yeah, you can find me, my YouTube channel, but aimeeraupp.com, AIM. You can see my name spelled right here. So aimeeraupp.com, and like I said, chances are I have your email, so I will send you out a message tomorrow with all of our details. And again, thank you so much for tuning in, and look forward to an email from me for next month's fertility sessions. Okay. So thank you again for joining, and wishing you all the best.